This is a trigger warning for many of the things I mentioned to start the video. By no means are any of these comments meant to minimalize, belittle, or insensitively make light of hardships, difficulties, or challenges people may face. These are only mentioned as examples of stories that may have been heard before, as a juxtaposition to the stories that have yet to be told. Thank you for understanding. You ever look around and you think to yourself, sorry, but I can't relate. That's not my story. That's not my experience. I don't know nothing about that. That's how I felt for so long. Not just in life, but just even in my current environment, even watching things on like YouTube, social media. I'll give you some examples. I had a job. I didn't love my job. My current situation isn't luxe and tons of fun and like that's not my story. Self-care sounds good, but that requires money, it requires time, it requires the flexibility. Also something that I want to grow into, I want to lean into. Again, soft life, not my story yet. Heavy on the yet. My IG isn't popping, I'm not big on the gram or the Snapchat or the Twitter or now the Threads. Like all this stuff, like I can't relate. I don't have a rags to riches story. I want to make sure I get everything that's on my list. I wasn't terrible in school. I don't have I failed all throughout school and then, I invented some app or I became a rapper or a singer or an actress. That's not my story either. I wasn't a teenage parent. Just things that you see and people tell these stories and it's like all of this started from the bottom, now I'm here. I can't relate. That's not my story. Thankfully, I've never been homeless. Thankfully, I grew up in a 2-parent home. All of these things that I feel blessed and I do not take these things for granted, but I'm still not fulfilled. So who's the person that's talking about that? No, I did the right things, or quote unquote right things, or what society told me the right things, not the other things are the quote unquote the wrong things. But I did, I did the work. I put my head down. I went to school. I walked the straight and narrow. And I'm just going through life, going through the motions, trying to go to work, trying to survive, trying to make it day to day. Who's talking about that? So if this sounds familiar, this video is for you. If you're one of those people who, I can't relate to the lost and found, the mess into miracles, the comeback kid, this is for you. I just want to share with you that that's fine. It's fine that's not your story. This has taken a long time and it's a continual process for me to realize it's fine that that's not your story. Because you and everyone listening, you are marvelously and that word don't want to come out right, marvelously and wonderfully made. And be glad that some of those things that are, I'm sure, valleys in people's lives, that's not your story. But I just want to share this with you, that it doesn't mean that your story doesn't need to be told. It doesn't mean that somebody doesn't need your story too. There's so much saturation in some of those other stories, and though they are powerful, I think we need to hear some of the stories of the everyday Joe or Jan or whatever you want to call her or him, that are going through life, that want to hear, hey, I don't come from a rich family. My parents aren't famous. I didn't have any of those kind of setbacks, but I still feel like I'm missing something in the now. This video is for you. Somebody needs your story. Somebody needs to know that they're not alone. And that though that story hasn't been told yet, there's space for that story. So I just wanted to share that because that's something that I've had to work through, because I'm like, hey, I'm hearing all this stuff online. I'm hearing all these inspirational, motivational, guru this, guru that. I'm like, none of that's my story. I can't relate. Who's talking to me? The everyday chick that's trying to figure it out. Who's talking to the millennial woman, man, who's just trying to do their best and live their best life in today's day and age, that doesn't have some of those things that I mentioned earlier? Who's talking to us? So just know that because your story hasn't been shared yet or is not saturated on social media, your story matters.